What's up, man? We're at Kirk Studios with KEH and the Darkroom Lab. Good night.
If you don't want it, here it is.
Thank you.
My name is Caleb Knieven.
Matt Day.
Sissy Lou. Taylor Pendleton.
What's going on? My name is Mike Gray. I'm a film photographer based in LA.
Hi, my name is Beatrice. I go by Bicasa on my socials.
What's going on? So my name is Jonathan Proagus. I run a YouTube channel called King Japes.
Yo, what's going on? My name is Paul Baldonado. I go by Paulie B on the interwebs. You can find me on YouTube, Paulie B. You can also find me on Instagram, paulie.b.
What's up, player? Jason Grainy Days Kummerfelt. Actually, my full name, Jason Mahogany Kummerfelt. Why is that funny? That's my middle name.
Favorite film stock is Ilford HP5.
Ooh, that one's tough. For color, I think right now it's Portrait 400. I mean, that's the safest option. But for black and white, it's always been Ilford HP5.
My favorite film stock is Portrait 800. It's kind of a very basic answer. I'm not really one that likes to experiment with different film stocks. Love everybody that does that, but for me, I like to be consistent. And I shoot a lot in New York City, where even on the sunniest of sunniest days, I can take a left and then my exposure drops by 6. So I try to shoot with the fastest and most consistent film that I can find. And for right now, in October 2023, that is Portrait 800. Hopefully in the future someone releases like a 1600 speed film, then that'd be my favorite.
What's my favorite film stock? It's between Portrait 800 and Lomo 800. And if I have to throw in a black and white stock, it's probably Tri-X 400.
It's hard. It's a really hard question. Can I say what's my least favorite? Hot take. My least favorite. I don't shoot Portrait 400 unless I'm on the campaign. It's great, but it's also one of the most, how do I put this? Flat film. In my opinion, it gives you so much room to edit or like to manipulate and to print in the darkroom. But sometimes I just want a little more character. So I would either go for 800, 160 portrait or not portrait at all.
If I had to answer, I would say right now at the moment, HP5.
My favorite film stock would have to be Portrait 800. Portrait 800 all day.
My favorite film stock, it has to be a basic answer, Portrait 400. I think it's the most versatile. I can shoot indoor stuff, I can shoot outdoor stuff. I usually shoot in studio a lot. The amount of beautiful portraits I've taken in studio using Portrait 400, it just knocks it out.
My favorite film stock, obviously, is Kodak Aerochrome, discontinued in 2009, I think, and I'm in the middle of a big campaign to get it back.
So 2 tips. One, well, I know how excited I was when I first got into film photography, and you just wanted to see all the different camera, film, and everything you want to try out because it's such a new world. But make sure that the camera itself doesn't really matter. What it really matters is the film that you put in there and the lens that you're using. So don't spend too much money thinking that you need a new camera body when film and the lens combo is what's most important. So that's one tip. And the second tip, instead of trying out everything on films, actually use a digital camera to learn the light, to learn your light before you do a lot more photos on film camera that you don't know what the outcome is at the moment when you take it. So try to polish on your skills like metering and seeing where light goes without seeing through a digital screen first. And that's gonna save you money. So just money saving tips.
Figuring out the impact in the story that you want to tell as an artist, because I think organically that will separate you from the rest, and be open to gain inspiration from other creatives.
It's just create. I feel like we get so stuck in taking the perfect photos, or we compare ourselves to other photographers and we forget to have fun and create the way that we want to do it in our own style. And I think that's the number one thing I wish I could have told myself when I first started, was just to, sometimes it's good to get inspiration online and look at other photographers' work and get inspired by it. But I feel like sometimes we can get fixated in just trying to get our work to look a little bit more like theirs and forget to just have fun and introduce and experiment in our own way, in our own style. So I think that's the most important tip I can give.
It might be like an easy one, but just like shoot. Just like shoot everything, because then you'll figure out what you like shooting. If you like shooting people, then you'll find that out fast. If you don't like shooting people, then you won't find that. You'll find it out too. Or if you like shooting abandoned buildings, you'll find that out too. So just shoot.
Advice for beginner film photographers is to keep it simple. Find a film stock you like and a camera you like and stick with that for as long as you can and just focus on shooting rather than bouncing around. Once you get comfortable, it's fun to experiment with different film stocks, different cameras, but stick with one thing as long as you can and just shoot as much as possible.
My advice is simple. It's just to experiment and play and not take it so seriously. Like, yes, technically there's a lot to learn and a lot to apply, but I think where the magic happens is when you maybe don't follow all the rules, or maybe when you just try something and you just fly by the seat of your pants.
Probably the first one is one that, I had to go through and experience myself. It's just not to focus too much on the gear. Once you find a piece of gear that works for you and you're getting good results from it consistently, stick with it. Because a lot of times with film photography, it's not all about the camera gear itself. It's more on the technique and the skills that you learn from shooting film. With that said, the first thing that I would do if you're just getting into film photography is to learn about the exposure triangle and Sunny 16. That for me was game changing, and once you kind of figure that out, you really get a better understanding of how to expose your film.
I interpret this in two ways. From a technical perspective, film is, if you're just picking up your first roll of film, it's very different than digital. In digital, I feel like you're supposed to underexpose things because you can bring up shadows. With film, you should overexpose because you have more flexibility in the highlights. So that was one thing when I switched to film that I had to switch my mindset was overexposed instead of underexposed, which is a little bit different. From like a photography perspective, I'd say just study the greats. Find a list of greats in whatever genre of photography that you take photos of, and then research each of those and figure out what makes them great. Like, what makes Joel Meyerowitz a great? What makes Saul Leiter a great? What is the composition, the colors, anything?
Be intentional. Study the work of somebody whose work you admire, and just be intentional, because film is expensive.
Okay, I'm inspired by movies a ton. Bradford Young is one that has a very natural palette when it comes to making movies, when shooting movies. And then, I gotta say it, Deakins is also like super chill. He knows what he's doing. He's been doing it for like a hot second. So those two are probably the biggest ones. And then Jason Roman, when it comes to photography, he just does some amazing portraits. So yeah, it'd be those.
A big one right now for me is Cameron Reed. He's a New York City portrait photographer, does crazy wide angle, like high fashion stuff. Right now, it hits hard for me, for sure.
An artist that I'm always inspired by is Sage Sawyer.
Her name is Sarah Van Rieck. Her work is just, I put her in the category as she's a photographer's inspiration. A lot of photographers are inspiration for many other artists, but she in particular is an inspiration for photographers. Because every time I see her work, whenever she posts something new, it's mind-boggling to see how she sees the world. It's very different than the way I see it, and I find that just the best way to improve myself, because I'm actually learning something different from someone's vision. It's her work. I cannot stop saying anything. I mean, check out her campaign works. I think she makes business campaign fun for photographers. So,
Gordon Parks was a big inspiration for me, being that he elevated everything in the time period that he shot, especially for African Americans, and he told our story so beautifully in the communities. And I think that's a pretty big inspiration, and you can see that throughout my body of work and my photos for sure.
Everyone in this room is so inspiring to me. It feels so special that I'm even in here right now. So yeah, shout out to everyone in this room. I feel so lucky. I'm so inspired.
Right now, my biggest inspiration, mostly for street photography, is Gary Winogrand. I have every one of his books that he's ever made or put out. I watched the documentary on him. He's amazing to me. He's probably my role model when it comes to street. Hopefully I can make photos that could even compare to his, and I don't think I ever will, but yeah.
As of right now, one in the past couple years that's been inspiring me a lot, I've been going to his books a lot, is Jason Eskenazi. He has a trilogy of books, Wonderland, Black Lounge. The compositions in that book, like every photo, I feel like is near perfect. So that helps me understand how do I balance within a frame the weight of moment, subjects, and like how does, even if a moment is very small, how much weight does that carry if it's in the back of a frame versus the front versus just the person on the side? And how can I build frames like that instead of just focusing in on like just the moment? And like how can I add something else to it?
A lot of my work is inspired by painters, so Edward Hopper's a big one for me. Richard Estes and Tomas Sanchez are also big inspirations for me.
And then Jason, and Jason too. Love that. Yeah. I take Venmo.